Hi everyone, and welcome to Multiplyers webinar. This is 101st webinar from Multipliers that gives me reassurance that everything will go as planned. And part of this plan was to surround myself with three wonderful people, friends and colleagues, and also talk about a very interesting topic, which is from hype to revenue, where AI is actually working in GCC. And we will not talk today about hype or about some buzzwords. We really want to understand where AI is actually working, generating revenue, and creating real value, and where it is still struggling. And first of all, I really want to walk you over the process and explain how everything works, especially if you're first time with us. So first, I really want to introduce our speakers, and then after that, I have a long list of questions, and I really want to unpack the topic. And then after that, I will open it for a conversation for everyone. So you can use the chat, you can type us where you're listening us from. I have very active audience, very engaging, and sometimes they're texting that they're from Australia or from Antarctica or from other parts of the world. And there is a lot of questions. So the most interesting questions we will pop on the screen and then answer them from starting from half an hour from right now. So without further ado, I really want to start with introductions. And first, I really want Hussain you to introduce yourself and share with us your organization, the background, and maybe a quick story how you got introduced to AI.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Genia. My name is Hussain. I'm the co-founder and GP of Hala Ventures previously, which became known as Hala Capital. We used to focus only onto technology, startups all over the MENA region. And we started expanding our basically coverage to cover the private equity and alternatives as well, starting from the end of last year. Basically, AI is over the world. It's kind of part of the development of the technology. It's one of our in our investment phase.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Hussain. Mel, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Genia, and thank you for having me. It's pleasure. My name is Małgorzata Filipowska. Everybody calls me Mał. I am originally from Poland, moved to GCC 5 years ago, and fell in love with the region. I am the head of portfolio at Seedstars International Ventures. It's a Swiss-based fund investing globally across emerging markets, and I manage portfolio of 140 companies across 40 different countries all over the world. Obviously, there is a chunk of my portfolio companies based out of GCC. I am personally based in Qatar, and the team is spread all over the world. Seedstars International Ventures, it's a pre-seed and seed fund investing across emerging markets globally with preference towards B2B tech, but still sector agnostic. Obviously, in the last year or year and a half, we've seen much more AI or AI-enabled companies knocking our doors, and in our pipeline, made a few investments in that space across different countries, different verticals. So yeah, happy to be here and happy to share my point of view on AI in GCC. Just to add, you may also remember Seedstars, or some of you may recognize Seedstars as a company that is running accelerator programs across different emerging markets. That is also what we do. That's a different part of the business, but I am representing solely the venture capital part, so I'm going to talk from the VC perspective here. Spent nearly a decade in the VC across different emerging markets.
Thank you, Mel. So we have here Saudi, Qatar, and William, you're having more global perspective, obviously. Please share with us where is the headquarters of Orbit, and also please introduce yourself.
Sure. William Baubin, Managing General Partner at Orbit Ventures. We're a global VC firm focused on growth markets, Asia, Middle East, Africa, and LATAM. We've been operating now 16 years. We're a US fund headquartered in Singapore. and we focus on helping companies grow up in the home market and then go cross-border. Started investing in the GCC region in 2020 and opened up our first office in the region in 2024 in Riyadh, where I'm based. We have 280 active portfolio companies in the portfolio. 97 of them are operating in the MENA region. And so I think according to Magnet, in last year, we were the number 4 most active VC in the region. So we invest pre-seed, seed, early stage. The main thing for us is we help with our lifetime support program. The thing that we focus most on is helping our companies with sales. So sales in home market and then sales going cross-border. So of the 97 companies we have in MENA, over 40 of which are from outside the region that we helped expand to the region to get sales. TechCrunch named us in 2018 the number 3 most active VC in AI in the world. But back then it was algorithms, and it became machine learning, machine vision, now AI. So we look at the problems in the world generally stay the same. The thing that changes is the tech, and how do we leverage that tech to solve problems that were previously unsolvable. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Not that this is competition, but I have only 7 companies in my personal portfolio and 2 LP investments. But I've been researching AI technology many years. And I started with organizing hackathons back then in 2016. And corporate companies were giving data to my company. And then we were just trying to build different products. And right now, Multipliers is connecting startups to investors and helping to raise seed and Series A. That's what we're doing in GCC. And I really want to start with questions. I think that, Hussain, I really want to ask you, across your portfolios, where are you actually seeing AI work in GCC?
Well, I'd like to be kind of generic when it comes to AI, answering this particular question, because AI cannot be taken as an absolute term without looking into the adoption. So we don't usually look into it as just pilots. We look into beyond the technology itself and focus on the behavior adoption. We kind of gauge the signals inside the client's organization. And, some of the strongest indicators might be the clear ownership by the team involved from the organization itself, the decision maker responsible for the AI product internally. And then comes the second part would be the frequency of utilization of the AIs, whether it's a product or service. Is it being used on a daily, weekly, or just sitting idle? Because it gives you basically a signal where it's working or it's not. And then definitely we focus into the feedback loop that is crucially important to know if that product, let's say, fits to the client's needs. And then comes the level of commitments. Whenever we're seeing a demand from the, let's say, client to build or adopt the technology on their own premises, it gives you a clear signal that there is a willingness and intent for long-term adoption for such services.
Yes, and if you will be a little bit more specific, maybe you can name some industries or products where the real revenue is coming, not just pilots.
If I may name one of our portfolio companies that initially started as a, let's say, AI kind of company is Intella. Starting from the beginning, before even starting building the machine and learning the machine over the years, and then seeing the adoption, and then rolling out a number of products and services to the different type of they started with a basic idea of the obsession of how to utilize the data, the idle data that is scattered all over the region. And they started with a very simple service in the beginning, which was an electronic surveys that has a feedback from the clients, and it sends basically kind of proactive feedback to the client so they can build on top of that. Then they started rolling out the first product, and then the rest of the products came in by being so close to the clients in different countries, different categories of clients, and then adapting to their needs and shipping new products every now and then. I can take the entire day talking about Intella's journey, but let's keep it as generic as it is, because again, the same dynamic applies to all different, let's say, kind of technologies, working in different domains as well. As much as the startup, let's say, the founding team is laser focused into the both ends, the technology side and the customer request side, being so much adaptive to the market needs, to clients' needs, shipping wherever is being needed, not for a single client, but for large, let's say, base of clients. That would make the company work or their product to be basically successful.
Yes, interesting. Thank you very much. Mel, I really want to ask you, maybe not where you see the most value of AI, but also where it did not deliver. So maybe you can ask that or answer that.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, that was question to Mel.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. No worries. To me, it's like the biggest disappointment, and obviously it's not difficult to understand why, but in the healthcare space, I would say that the pace of changes has been slower than expected. I see a lot of accelerators or early venture capital funds coming to the region, even Qatar, basically showcasing all of those solutions or AI applications of AI into the healthcare industry. But the tech is not the problem. It's basically the hospital procurement and the regulatory approval cycles in the GCC. I saw a lot of interesting solutions in the healthcare space during Web Summit, during different events being pitched to us, but I don't see that in the real life or being deployed yet. I think it will change, because if there is a region in the world that is going to excel, I believe that's going to be GCC. But if you were to ask me for like one disappointment, is I would really love to see all of those amazing applications of AI that you can use even in the day-to-day healthcare space. So that would be my bet. And it is disappointing because I saw a lot of solutions coming here. I saw a lot of solutions pitching. I see momentum, but I don't see and don't actually hear about real applications of AI in the healthcare space in the GCC yet. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at least looking from the Qatari and Emirati lenses, I don't see that happening yet.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So, do you think, Mal, that it could be the reason that the complication or the challenges of the regulatory requirement could play a role in this, especially in that particular sector?
Could be, but I think it's not a GCC only problem. I can imagine that this landscape is much more regulated in Europe and in US 100%. I mean, like William can probably tell us a little bit more about, all of the bottlenecks of the healthcare system in Europe. So I'm positive about the future of AI in healthcare in the GCC. If I were to name one of those three regions, which one will be the first one to deploy proper AI solutions for patients, thinking of individual patients as the end customers? Even imagine a solution where you have, I don't know, all of your prescriptions and like some kind of AI on it, what kind of medicine you should be taking, or even like your history of your diseases in one particular country. I, for example, moved 5 times between different countries, and there's some of my medical record in Poland, there's some of it in the UK, some of it in the UAE, some of it in Qatar, and having a solution that could help you combine even all of that, and AI a layer on that could potentially answer all of your questions and so on. I'm just thinking out loud of potential use cases of AI that I would love to see as a patient. Now, if I were to name a region that will deploy it first, I'm confident GCC is going to be that region. Not over-regulated European Union, and probably not US, that we know has its own challenges in the healthcare space. So to answer your question, yeah, I think it's a matter of regulatory aspects and how fragmented this market is. But I'm positive in general. I think that the future is bright. So for sure, the future for healthcare in the GCC is bright. It's just I haven't seen anything else and anything coming to the region yet. But I saw a lot of noise. So this is my disappointment.
William, maybe you can add on that. But also, I really want to ask you, how do you personally tell hype from real product market fit in AI?
Well, I mean, AI is a building block technology, right? So it's not a sector, but the way we look at it is like any other new technology, whether it be blockchain or quantum, it allows the solving of problems in a more efficient, effective, and cost-effective way than previously possible, right? So it's a foundational building block. So I can give a couple of examples. One in healthcare. Okay, so trying to organize data from hospitals to send to therapeutics companies, to drug companies, has traditionally been pretty complicated and quite manual to clean the data, right? And so usually what happens is pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, Sanofi, when they're doing drug development, they tend to start the process clinical trials to get to FDA approval in the US. And they usually don't start the process in Asia and the Middle East until much later. But one of our companies, Amex Bank, has been able to do is partner with hospitals, ingest their data very quickly and efficiently, organize it, clean the data, and offer it to pharmaceutical companies who are going through clinical trials in the US so they can start the clinical process for the Middle East faster. This was not previously possible in an economic way. But now they're lowering the cost of starting the process faster in the Middle East because it's like 5-6x cheaper than it used to be. And the result is that the pharmacy companies can start marketing drugs that are approved in the US much, much faster. So it's not serial. You can actually do the processes in tandem. So that patients in the Middle East can get these new drugs much faster than previously possible. And the reason is that AI brings the cost of delivering the patient data masked from the hospitals to the pharmaceutical companies much quicker. So Amex Bank's signed a global top 5 AI company as a customer. I can't say which one, but the top 5. And they're doing well. And again, most of the customers are actually global pharmaceutical companies in the US, but the target is the Middle East. And the data is coming from the Middle East. And actually the hospitals in the Middle East are making money off this data. And then obviously it's mass, there's no personal data. So that's one example from health where AI can have an impact.
By the way, do you see the difference between working with, let's say, Saudi hospitals and United Arab Emirates located hospitals? Is the regulation the same here or not?
My understanding, we're mostly working with Saudi ones because that's where I'm based, less so in the UAE. And they are, they've got a long ways to go, okay? So a lot of their systems are pretty, shall we say, old school. And so there's a lot of work that can be done digitizing these very sort of traditionally run hospitals. Now there are government programs that are designed to help the hospitals make that move. And so it's not just working with the hospitals. A lot of time it's working with the governments as well, and trying to leverage government support to help the hospitals make this sort of like leapfrog. When the government gets involved, a lot of the regulatory challenges are still there, but they're reduced because the government has ability. I don't want to say the government. There's a lot of different bodies within the government, but the government has that ability to cut through some of the red tape that you would traditionally see and historically did see.
Mm-hmm. So I have a batch of questions that is concerns your investment focus, investment thesis. And first of all, I really want to know if you're investing more in verticals or in horizontal tools. And then also, does it really matter for you if the early stage company is already generating revenue or not, if it's a deep tech company? And then also, I really wanted to hear from some of you who is working with global pipeline. What is the difference between, let's say, comparing United States-based companies or, let's say, GCC-based? And I think, Mel, you can probably start with that.
So what is the difference between evaluating? I mean, like I can tell you from the perspective, I mean, like mostly of companies that are expanding into GCC, so similar to what Will is doing. Obviously, the volume of my portfolio companies is probably not as big. I cannot tell that I relocated 40 companies to the GCC or helped with sales to 40 companies. It's really remarkable, Will, by the way, what we did. But few important things that I can share into that questions. So first of all, when we evaluate the companies that are looking like in the AI space or actually in any space that are looking at the GCC market, is the first thing that we look at is whether they have people on the ground. So we, like Egypt, for example, is one of the most active markets for us as Xasis International Ventures. Unfortunately, we haven't made any big investments there recently, given the macroeconomic situation in Egypt, but we are still bullish on Egypt on the long term, and we are still looking and paying a very close attention into what's happening on the market. Then in Egypt, you very often hear that story also in the AI space that, oh, I'm so interested in expanding into the GCC, but I'm going to build my company in Egypt and then expand after GCC. From my experience, it does not work. I mean, at least based on the companies that we invested in, it doesn't work like that. You really need to have salespeople on the ground from day one. You really need to have a proper understanding of whether Saudi or Emirati markets. You need to have the relationships. Even in the AI space, I mean, like AI, as Will mentioned, it's just a layer. At the end of the day, what really matters is whether the company is solving a real problem on one of those markets. So what I'm seeing, whether if the companies are expanding from Egypt or even now, one company from India came to my mind that was also very bullish on GCC market as a place to expand. And yeah, at the end of the day, it only works if you really have people on the ground building relationships and trying to understand this market from day zero, not even day one. Keen to hear, Will, if this is something that you are seeing as well. But yeah, that's my observation. And now back to your question, Genia, how do we evaluate those companies? Obviously, GCC is a very lucrative market for many of portfolio companies from emerging markets. And at the end of the day, we evaluate them through, basically analyzing what are their chances of winning this market. Because like I mentioned, we saw a lot of companies and heard a lot of pitches of founders being very bullish, but actually not committing into this market properly. For me, commitment in terms of GCC, maybe you can expand to Europe or you can expand to Southeast Asia. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, Will, without having people on the ground. I think you cannot expand to GCC without having people on the ground. In fact, one of the decacorns from Poland, which is my home country, 11 Labs, is currently working on the expansion to the GCC region. And the first thing that I hear about them doing and see them doing is hiring people on the ground. So I haven't seen any actual announcements of them making partnerships or selling their solutions to the big telcos or other enterprises that would typically be their clients. That's not announced yet. It's probably still in works, but I see them already hiring people. And I think this is the right approach. And okay, they are later stage company, decacorn already, although they're only 4 or 5 years old. But I think this is the approach that also very early stage companies should follow when looking into the Middle East expansion. And just to answer your question in one sentence, we look whether they are able to do that. That's what we analyze.
Interesting. William, can you also comment on the question about do you more specifically looking into vertical solutions or horizontal? Because I think it's important for startups that are listening to us right now.
Yeah, I would say based on my understanding of vertical versus horizontal, we're generally looking at companies that start with vertical but have the opportunity to go horizontal, right? So whenever you if you're starting any type of marketplace, for example, it's very difficult to offer everything to everybody. So usually what you do is you start with offering one thing to a select group, and once that's working, then you can expand from there. So 0 to 1 is different than 1 to 10 is different than 10 to 100, right? We within AI, we kind of break it down to 5 different areas. There's compute and semiconductors, and we're internet and software, so we don't invest in that. Within AI, we look at models, unique data, and then solving an industry problem. And people used to make fun of us because we weren't focused on models. We were basically investing in wrappers, companies that had unique data, and then solving a very specific industry problem. We have helped a lot of our companies go cross-border successfully because we have a sales force on our team internally. So it's not like we're doing sales ourselves, but it's warm intros where we leverage our background, my background in corporate VC, trying to make those connection points. So we have a company out of Egypt called Open Valley, and they do AI solution for digitizing large telcos. They have usually hundreds, oftentimes thousands of engineers managing the networks, and they leverage AI to make that a lot more cost effective, replacing a lot of those engineers with AI, and significantly driving costs down. So they successfully, from Egypt, got customers like Etisalat and STC. And it's usually, starts off with trial and it goes to contract with a fly-in, fly-out model. They don't have anybody on the ground in the GCC, but they are close by in Egypt. And so for some of these very technical solutions, it is important to have people doing the sales, but oftentimes you can do the fly-in, fly-out thing, and then put people on the ground once there's some revenue there. So we try and help our companies with a very low-cost market entry strategy where you don't hire first and then try and get sales. You get sales, and then you get revenue, and then hopefully then you hire. And so this makes it a little bit more efficient. So it's a bit of a art rather than a science, but we've used this strategy to help companies get sales, and we leverage our relationships on the ground and that we slowly built up over the last 5 years to help open the doors and at least figure out, not just how to push in, but work with our corporate partners and pull. And that pushing takes time. Pulling can be a little bit faster, but it is a lot of work, and it builds up over time. In 2020, when we first started, we found an opportunity selling to PIF-backed companies because they had motivated management, they had very clear goals, and they had some money to invest in tech. Now we're trying to broaden that out a bit. So hopefully that helps. But try and do a low-cost market entry if possible. For a decacorn is probably different. For a big enterprise sale, it can be different. Think about within a market, what's the low-hanging fruit look like? What are the clients that are easiest to sell to? And focus on them, especially in the beginning. So another thing we think about is, first you sell to your friends or people and then you sell to small strangers, and then over time you sell to large strangers. So you're not going to go straight to the large stranger group.
I actually wanted to comment on that because I think that specifically in Saudi and in Emirates, all telecom companies are very tech savvy. So I hear a lot of stories that there is a lot of pilots, there is a lot of acquisitions. So I do think that comparing to a lot of other countries where I've worked and lived, I think that, let's say, CC, Zain, and Hala, they're very active in terms of adopting AI. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what their motivation is. And there's like a question in the comments here. So a lot of people have been told that they need to use AI, but they don't actually know what AI is. It's kind of amorphous for them. So if you try and solve a problem that they actually have and they have budget to solve, and you're leveraging AI to solve that problem, it's a bit of an easier sale than it is saying, going in and saying, I have AI, I can solve all your problems. So try and narrow it down a little bit and solve a problem that they have, that they know they have, and that they have budget for. And then you can position AI so they can tell the upper management that they're leveraging AI.
Interesting. So talking
Genia,
about
You had
yes, go ahead.
yeah, no, I have a question to Will, because it really intrigued me what you said about, low cost entry to the GCC market. So I wanted to double click on that and ask you, and maybe also you, Hussain, how are you solving for the trust components? Because especially when selling to like larger customers in the GCC, this, I would say, the relationship piece, at least from my observation, is extremely critical here. If you have people that are flying in and out, either they need to fly in and out pretty much all the time, or you need to be very smart and strategic about this trust building component. So keen to hear about how your portfolio companies are solving that.
Well, this brings me to my first comment, back to your first point when you answered the second question, which is the trust part of the business, doing business. So the nature and dynamics of business in here, especially in the GCC, depends heavily into trust. Trust is built over time. You have to see you a lot, frequently, and then start dealing with you slightly, and then we will do business with you, regardlessly of what the outcome will be. Hopefully, it's going to be positive. So this takes time. Unfortunately, a lot of newcomers, a lot of new founders, they don't care about this matter at all. They're not paying attention to this at all. So we started engaging with our, at least, portfolio companies. We tried to teach them a lot. We tried to actually engage ourselves with enterprises to give them access to the market. Not only that, because we have seen this problem happening all over the place for all of the, let's say, entrepreneurs who are coming from abroad mostly. So we did at least one program lately with the SME authority, Munshaat, a program actually to tie the startups with enterprises, because actually both are speaking totally different languages. Nobody is understanding the language of the others, and no one is willing actually even to understand what the other party needs. And everybody is trying to, just like it's a hit and run kind of deals. And this is not the way to conduct business in here. And that's why I totally believe in what you have mentioned earlier. You have to have someone in your team early on from here, not necessarily Saudi, but from here, who has been in the market for quite some time, who has access to the market, to different kind of enterprises, to the domain that you're serving, basically, or at least to hire someone, to have him early on to help you accomplish that. Actually, one of the most successful stories historically that we know globally is Microsoft. When the two co-founders started that, in order to access to the enterprise level, they hired a new guy. The new guy became later on the CEO, and he's still the largest shareholder until this day. So unless they made that bold move and smart move, Microsoft wouldn't be what it is today, among other factors, definitely, that helped them to succeed. That's my intake when it comes to building a trust from day one, actually.
Great. I also wanted to ask Hussein, because this is the part of the question that I asked everyone, all speakers, because Orbit and SeedStars, they're helping with sales. Is it a deal breaker for you in Hala Ventures if the company is not generating revenue?
It's a case-by-case scenario. So if it's a local, let's say, it's based in here, it has established the company and launched it in here in Saudi, with the founding team based here in Saudi, who has experience into the Saudi market, it would be different than someone who's building, let's say, their company in, let's say, in Egypt, and they're claiming that they're going to come to Saudi market, they're going to expand to UAE or somewhere else. It's totally different. And then basically, when it comes to using AI, it's different than other technologies because it needs extra amount of trust because the client are giving you access to their own private data. So unless you have paid customers, there is nothing proves that they can sell. Whatever they are doing is just like a demo. So yes, early traction matters a lot, no matter how much, but early tractions extremely important before taking any serious action and investing.
100%. I would completely agree with what Hussein said, Genia. We probably would make 80% of the investments that we would make would be based on traction, and obviously team, but there would be an early traction. Perhaps 20% of the investments that we would make every year would be pure team bet, but 100% and it's actually, it doesn't really matter what the region is. It's pretty much the same case everywhere, whether it's LATAM, whether it's Southeast Asia. So yeah, I see that we lost Genia, but yeah, 100% agree with you, Hussein, and that's also what we do. What we also look at as a fund is obviously the quality of revenue. So it's very different if you have 80% or 90% of your revenue coming from one enterprise customer versus you have the revenue distributed between different customers across different sectors, ideally, or even if it's one sector, but still it's not risk heavy in terms of if you're going to lose this one customer, we are going to lose everything. So that's another thing that we are looking at in terms of the early traction. So what's the concentration of each individual customer? We do mostly B2B, so all of them would be obviously larger tickets, but at the very beginning, we prefer to focus on, at the very beginning of the startup journey, we prefer to focus on companies that are selling to SMEs as end customers and then are thinking of expanding into enterprise in the future. And the reason for that is obviously the sales cycles. The enterprise sales cycles are extremely long, probably also the case for the GCC, where, as we already mentioned, the trust component is critical. And yeah, I think that's what we look at. So just to summarize, basically the quality of revenue, 80% of our bets would be based on the early traction and how the company is performing so far. And Genia, I see you're back.
Yes, my telecom in Saudi decided to set me up, but it's so.
No worries. I just answered the question, Genia, about the early traction. So how much does the early revenue matter to us as investors? So yeah,
Great.
I can also chime in a little bit. One of the things that we try and do as a global player is local partners. When we invest, we generally invest pretty small checks, but we don't take a huge percentage ownership of the company. There's plenty of room for other investors. And we partner, with other VCs like like Hala Capital, for example, hopefully more in the future, where we invest together, and they have much stronger relationships than we do, especially among local corporates and conglomerates. So it's a group effort. So when you think about VC, don't think about just about the money. Think about what other ways can they help you beyond the capital. Because in the end, we all do better if there's less future dilution for all of us. And the best type of capital is not investment. The best type of capital is non-dilutive. It's revenue.
Maybe I can add a minor thing in here. Is what's going on in the market nowadays is just like a theater. Everybody claiming to have a super product or a super service, and the cost is basically nothing to start a demo. However, having a client that is paying for your product or service is what matters. Having your product embedded within the workflow of the company is what matters. Adding to the top line of the organization matters a lot. Having a reflection on the bottom line as well matters a lot. Unless we see all of these factors, there's something missing. I mean, is it really a company that can stand by its own, or it's a feature that is nice to have? So that's why it matters a lot to not only know that there is a revenue out of a client, but also to understand from the client perspective, how are they seeing that product? By the way, if I may ask, William, what's the percentage of the companies right now, the companies that are based in here, are adapting to AI or AI native companies?
So as I mentioned earlier, most of our companies are not doing core development in AI. They're leveraging AI, oftentimes other people's models, but they're bringing their unique data. And I'd say for us, I mean, we're a US fund, Singapore headquartered, but we started in China in 2010. And in China, if you weren't leveraging algorithms and machine learning and AI, you were not competitive at all. So to various levels, all of our companies are leveraging AI. Some of them are leveraging it, they're earlier in their journey. Some are much later in their journey. But I would say that if they're not AI native, they're not competitive. And we're industry agnostic. This is from supply chain to digitizing mom and pop shops to SME to fintech to prop tech to construction. Whereas most of our companies are not leveraging blockchain, for example, because the transparency, security, and trust is not needed by everybody that blockchain brings. But pretty much AI can be applied to almost every single process. So oftentimes what you'll see is a company that was doing things in the old way. And over the last 2 years, they started updating and changing their product, solving the same challenge, but AI enabling it. So what we've seen is, when we had one company that had 140 people, now they're down to 32. Okay. So they basically replaced a lot of their tech team with AI tools. There's still people out there selling because it's hard to replace relationships with an AI. So they went from as a percentage of their team, from 10% salespeople to 30% salespeople, right? As they brought down the tech team. And it also makes operations a lot more efficient. But one of the things that we spend a lot of our time doing is bringing in our 570 mentors. A lot of them are advising on a volunteer basis our companies on how to make that product transition.
I'd like to quote one of our founders who was saying earlier that he said, "I feel sorry for the companies." His license, basically, company by the. He has this kind of defensibility for the business itself. So he was saying that I feel really sorry for businesses, really defensibility plans, that they don't have a real moat. Having the AI enabling the businesses, I mean, SaaS is involved essentially. Companies who are relying only on developing a program or software, they want and also companies who don't adapt to AI in order to cut the fat and lay off whatever is not needed, out of programmers or whatever roles that are not necessary to have anymore. It's going to be very challenging for them.
Yeah, it's a revolutionary tech. it's a game changer.
It is.
Yeah, sorry, you're saying?
I was asking Mal before Genia came up again if he witnessed anything within AI adaptation within the companies.
Well, so I actually just wrote a post on my blog about it last week. What I'm seeing among my portfolio companies, and by the way, 100% agree with everything what Will said previously. I observe very similar things across my portfolio companies, in terms of the efficiencies, in terms of hiring, and so on. But another thing that I observed recently is the use of vibe coding tools among my portfolio companies. So, initially, when all of those solutions such as Base 3044 or Lovable started popping up at the market, you're thinking that those are for people who don't necessarily know how to code, that they will use those solutions in order to design a website or maybe a very simple app or a simple CRM and so on. We introduced the Lovable for Startups offer to our portfolio about 3 weeks ago. And my WhatsApp and my inbox exploded. I swear, even when I introduced OpenAI credits into my portfolio companies as a discount or like as a perk, it wasn't as popular as Lovable. And I noticed that a lot of my portfolio companies are using it for prototyping, are using it for figuring out different things before actually developing them. So from my perspective, it's a very interesting use case of those vibe coding tools for companies that are actually, Series A already and technically are probably not within the target group, but turns out they are 110% within the target group for the tools such as Lovable, because they just make everything much, much more efficient. To the point that I ran out of all of the credits that Lovable gave me within the first week after they introduced the offer, just because the interest was so massive among the portfolio companies. So yeah, excited to see more of that. I'm personally also in the vibe coding rabbit hole. So yeah, exciting to see the change that those tools and the accessibility of building actually right now will make, what difference it will make in emerging markets, including GCC.
I think that we have a couple of questions in the chat, and I also highly encourage everyone to share with us some other questions. But Abigail, can you please pop it on the screen, because yes, how supportive do you think are regulatory environments for experimentation and startups in the GCC? I do think that there is a sandbox platform in Saudi, but I'm not sure that sandbox, I think it's specifically for fintech companies. Maybe someone can add to that as well. Anyone?
Extremely. I mean, so I have no idea how much the person who's asking is following up in the media here in the region, in the GCC, especially in both actually Saudi, Qatar, and UAE. To be honest with you, the government started initiatives to spend massively into the infrastructure that is helping the AI. There is basically strong government backing for the technology companies, and there is access to advanced compute from companies like NVIDIA or alike. And here in Saudi, they have just started, it was like an initiative, and then came as a company called Hussain, and they have a lot of initiatives. They're building a lot, and they're trying to build alongside the founders, not necessarily by themselves only. So before even the era of the AI hype, we have seen the flexibility of the regulators in both actually in UAE and Saudi, and now I believe Qatar is keeping up, from both the central banks, capital market authorities, from the other governmental entities as well, being so flexible by having their sandboxes ready for startups to start and pilot their projects for a certain period of time, and then to give them the full license once they graduate from that, let's say, period. So yes, we are seeing a lot of support from the governmental side.
Let's also answer another question that we also have. I see the woman asked about the fund. Abigail, can you also show the second question? We have 3 minutes left, and maybe we will have time for that. But also, I really want, yes, Christine, perfect. So Christine works with a VC fund, and they have 30+ partner funds. Interesting. So we're actually deploying investments and looking for investments in great early stage tech startups and innovative ideas. Yes, that was not a question. Great. So thanks to Christine, everyone who are interested. I think that probably I really want to wrap it up within last 3 minutes to talk about underleveraged niches and some trends that are not yet there. Let's say maybe you see some trends in some other countries that have to show up in GCC, or maybe there is some industries that could be disrupted with AI much better in GCC and bring in more revenue. So let's just quickly brainstorm on that. Mel, let's start with you.
Yeah, I would probably just repeat what I said before. I think, vibe coding and, founders actually vibe coding things and using more of the AI efficiency layer before entering the market, and using it for, early customer interviews, or using it for getting feedback in terms of whether the solution or particular feature of their solution is worth building. That's something that I'm not seeing in the GCC yet. What I'm seeing in the GCC is very often a lot of enthusiasm, but about building solutions that already exist and can be easily adopted to GCC from other markets. That's at least what is being pitched to me either at conferences or on LinkedIn. Is like I very rarely see those solutions that, I would say, oh wow, I have never seen this before. And I see a lot of founders here, to back to the previous point, building something that already exists, and there's like not really a big need to build that, especially at the very early stage. So just to give an example, I think 2 or 3 days ago, somebody reached out to me building a note-taking tool, like AI note-taker tool out of Qatar. I'm like, great, it's exciting, but we have already 150,000 of AI note-takers in the market. We don't need that anymore. So using vibe coding for that early customer validation, or even talking to customers before even building, that's something that I would love to see more in the GCC at the very early stage. But I'm talking about it from the very, very early stage perspective, from the perspective of somebody who is involved with local incubators, accelerators, and those places where the ideas are being born.
Thank you. William, maybe you can also share with us within 1 minute which technology you would bring in the region so that it disrupts some industries here.
Yeah, I mean, we're very much focused on digitizing very traditional industries and helping them become more efficient, more effective. One area where we invest and not too many other people invest is in education. We've done over 30 investments in education. Now, there's a challenge within education in that the business model is pretty tough because you have to spend money to acquire users. You have the user for a period of time, and then they usually leave. They graduate, they go get a job. Hopefully something good happens after they invest time in education. The cost of education has come down with AI. And then we also have our ecosystem effect where we can help our companies get customers in the front end. And then we can also help our companies monetize above and beyond the product that they're selling. So within our ecosystem, a lot of our companies help each other, introduce each other to customers and to consumers. And through this ecosystem network effect, you can take models that are traditionally quite difficult to monetize, but actually make them more efficient, lower down CAC, increase lifetime value. And so one area where we're investing, not too many other people are, is in education because we can help to make those models profitable.
Great. Hussain, last word for you.
I will mention
something.
I'll mention something that we have mentioned even before starting the session. I'm super optimistic about the region. I'm super optimistic about the Saudi market in particular. I believe that the development within technology has a lot of opportunities within all domains. To start with, if we're talking about Saudi market, I'm going to talk about the Vision 2030 and the pillars to achieve that vision. If you look into the domains or sectors that is focusing, the vision is focusing on, includes the energy, construction, financial market, and so on. If you only focus into those sectors, there are plenty of opportunities in there. Not only this, there the other areas as well. For sure, there is plenty of opportunity everywhere. One of the things that we are seeing underrated is Arabic first AI. It's still massively underserved. We don't see a lot of companies providing such solutions. And this is one. And second, companies that providing support in order for companies, SMEs, to adapt using AIs. I mean, mentioning AI as a hype is nice, but how many of the SMEs are adopting and know exactly how to utilize it in a way that is, again, adding to their or increasing their efficiency? I think these kind of companies will thrive going the next few couple of years at least.
Yeah, I do think that every single startup who listened to us today and then they were wondering what is going on right now in the region, I think everyone see that we are very optimistic about everything. Business is still continuing. We're investing here in different companies, even right now, even during this time. And I really like just to share one example that I recently have seen across social media, that some people really scared and they don't understand, and like they froze. But some people really look into opportunities right now. And let's say there is a brand, there is a woman, she lives in Dubai, she's Lebanese. She has a brand, Karen Wazan. And probably you've heard of her, right? She's selling sunglasses and then also cosmetics and other things. Yesterday, she announced that she opened her own beach club in Dubai. So her first beach club. And it was very interesting for me. I was thinking, how fast can business can just pivot and sign I don't know, whatever it is, like she bought this beach or she rented it. launched marketing campaign and print all the materials with the logos, like different towels and everything, and then also revamped the restaurant within just 3 weeks from the moment when the war started with Iran, right? And I really like everyone to just be inspired by her positivity. And then there is a lot of other brands who see the opportunity right now and who can build the brand even, who can make the brand even stronger. So that was my one, bit of positivity to wrap up this conversation. And I'm super grateful for every one of you to join me today. And I think it went very well, and it was very interesting. Even when my internet was lagging, the conversation still went on. So I think that's the sign that it went very well. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for our listeners and for people who ask questions. The recording will be available by the same link, so you can always access it. And I will definitely send it to people who registered at this webinar. And I will see you in 1 month, because every single month we're hosting this webinars here on LinkedIn.
Thank you very much for having us, Genia, and thank you, Hussain and William. It was fun having a chat with you this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so
Have a good
much.
evening. Bye.